Welcome to the Road to 100 Million in Real Estate podcast, where you'll benefit from the opportunity to learn to become a skillful real estate investor. You'll get guidance from top industry producers, operators, and investors who are eager to help you learn from their proven strategies of success. Now to your host, Dorrance Constant.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode. I'm your host, as always, Dorrance Constant. I've got another great guest on the show today. We've got Tom Burns. Tom, welcome to the show, brother. How are things in Texas?
Oh, they're doing great. You know, it gets below 50 degrees and we all start putting on long underwear. So it's been good, though. It's been good.
Oh, that's awesome. What's up? It's been great chatting with you offline, but I definitely want to, give folks an opportunity to learn more about you.
Sure.
Folks, Tom is an entrepreneur, retired orthopedic surgeon, and a physician for the United States ski team, Go America. He has over 25 years of real estate experience and has acquired or developed over $500 million of real estate locally and internationally. He's the co-founder and principal of Presario Ventures, a private real estate company focused on apartment development and private equity in Texas and the Sun Belt. Dr. Burns is the author of Why Doctors Don't Get Rich, a best-selling personal finance book for those who want to live life to the fullest. He's a sought-after speaker and mentor and has been financially independent for over a decade. He has created the Rich Life Mastermind to help people create financial independence so they can control their future and travel to exotic places. And look at that, Doctor, you made it down to Colombia before you met me, huh?
Yeah. I missed out. I just get a reason to go back.
Okay, yeah, that's what it'll be. That'll be. We'll give you a chance to fall in love with some more food, some more exotic destinations here in Colombia, brother.
Awesome.
All right, now you've got a very interesting story, a very interesting journey. You went from being a doctor and taking a lot of steps. I'd love to hear you tell the audience more about you.
Sure. I'll give out the short version. So yeah, I started out as a young person. I was an athlete and pretty good, but there's levels of good, right? I wasn't good enough to play on TV. So I had to think of something to do. So I went into medicine to be a sports guy. So I was an orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine. And so I started following that path. It was the only stuff I knew. Followed that path into training. You do a training deal where you do you do college med school and then a thing called residency where it's kind of an apprenticeship training where they teach you how to do what you do. Mm-hmm. I was learning to be an orthopedic surgeon. And it's there. The guys I was apprenticing under were 10, 20, 40 years older than me, and they were supposed to be me in the future in 20 years. Mm-hmm. I didn't like what I saw. They weren't having as much fun as I planned on having. They didn't have the control I had. And I decided I didn't necessarily want their money if I had to have their life. So I didn't like the way medicine was going. I thought it was a declining industry, kind of all these little things, that doesn't all come at once. A little tap on the shoulder by an angel. And I thought, I need to find something else that's not correlated with medicine that might bring in a little extra income. That's all I was looking for. I looked at a bunch of stuff, landed on real estate for a lot of obvious reasons. It moved slow enough for me, low barrier to entry. I could do it with partners. I could do it part-time, the kind of stuff that fit the schedule of a busy surgeon. That's what I did. I started learning stuff. I was reading. There weren't podcasts to listen to back then. I was reading everything I could, talking to people that were smarter than me. That was pretty easy to find, and eventually got to a point where I'd learned as much as I could or was learning and had a little extra money. So the best way to learn was to jump in. So I jumped in the water, bought something, and like everybody, started small with something small, got pretty good at that market. Things got bigger, deals got bigger, and ran out of money, started getting investors, and it just kind of grew organically over time. So now we have a company with employees and lots of investors, and currently we're sort of in the multifamily space, built to rent multifamily, little hotel work, things like that. So that was the really short version.
Yeah, I imagine you've had a long career in both medicine and in real estate investing. But you said something that piqued my interest, very interesting. As when you were employed, you were looking at what could potentially be the version of you 10, 20, 30 years from that point in time, and you made a conscious decision that, hey, this is not something I want to be, right? And that's interesting because there's a lot of people who see that go through that, but don't make that leap. And frankly, I went through the same thing when I was working on Wall Street, right? So I'd love to hear back then, if you could bring us back to that moment, how were you able to get over, right? Maybe some of the fears, apprehension that you may have had in that specific time to take that leap?
Yeah, sure. And my wife and I always, from the day we got married and before, we decided we were going to have fun in life, whether times were good or bad. And you can make a decision to do that. I didn't think those guys were having fun. They were complaining. They were on their second and third marriage, things like that. And so, didn't have to get over a lot of fear I feared that more than I feared going and making a few mistakes. Now, trained as a doctor, we are scientists, pseudoscientists, whatever. We're not supposed to make mistakes. So I did have to beat a little bit of the doctor out of me to find out that I learned more when I made a mistake here and there. And so, it all boils down to, I knew I wanted something different. The path I was on wasn't going to give me that different thing. So I just jumped. I learned what I could. I learned enough to where I was dangerous, and then just got in there and learned. And, the learning just accelerated exponentially once I was actually in the game.
Right. What year did you start investing?
Probably. So I finished my training. It was about mid-90s.
Okay, mid-90s. Now, you've seen the ups and downs of the market.
Yeah.
So you've seen now what? We've had two pretty major economic downturns. I'm referring to 2008 and referring to the COVID-19 epidemic, right? Pandemic, excuse me. So what is your current investment strategy, and how has that evolved over time?
Sure. When you're young, nothing goes wrong, right? So I also had the pleasure of going through the 2001 dot-bomb crash. And so that's when I still had money in the stock market, and that got cut off at the knees. And I learned I didn't have any control there and didn't like that. So that was kind of a lesson I learned there. Didn't learn it until about 2008, got out of the stock market, learning all the way, kind of being more of a hard asset guy. I thought I'd learned a lot of lessons when it came to the great financial crisis. Had things pretty much laid out and kind of knew where things were going to go. And of course, I missed one small thing, which cost me quite a lot of money per month. And so struggled a bit for a couple of years after the financial crisis. I had some mezzanine debt out. I had to pay people. And I did I got lines of credit, did everything I could. I paid all my investors off, plus interest. But that cost me the first several years of the greatest real estate sale we've had in a long time. So now here we are, and then COVID didn't affect us a lot. I mean, it affected us with supply chain and supply costs and things like that. But, we kind of got through that. It was actually a pretty big year for us, or medium year for us. Then the year following was a slingshot, crazy year. Good time to sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now the reason I tell those stories is, I'm trying to use a word that's different than older. I'm seasoned now, right? So I've been seasoned by a few downturns. And so, number one, I'm trying to figure out, what am I missing this time? That's a good thing to ask yourself. What am I missing? And I'm trying to ask others and find out how they see it. But we are, as a company, we're much more conservative, lower loan to value. Of course, it's always fixed rate, and we're really careful. We actually saw early, about this time last year, there were rumblings about interest rates going up and things changing. We had a really robust pipeline, a lot of deals coming out, and we went in and just amputated everything but the best. And that turned out to be a good decision. So we just try to be really careful, trying to pick things that are as recession resistant as possible. Nothing really is, but you try. I'm going to sit on some cash. I actually paid taxes this year on purpose so that I could keep the cash instead of rolling it forward and not paying taxes. So cashing up, making sure, since 2008, I got nothing variable, and one debt that's in my name. Everything else is non-recourse debt. So building a bunker, so to speak. I've kind of been building that bunker since 2008. And so it's kind of going more with safety. We're still working, still looking at projects. There are still good deals out there. It's just a little harder to find right now. But having seen how quickly things drop off a cliff, I'm making sure that when they do, I've got what I need to either take advantage of opportunities or, pay the light bill.
Got it. Right. So it sounds like you've been preparing for this potential recession or current recession, however you want to look at it, right? And I'm curious. You mentioned you speak with people who are smarter than you, is what you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's been some of their takes on how to prepare for this recession and still do well in the midst of all of this?
Yeah. It's, some of the groups I'm in are folks that they've kind of built a really nice nest egg. And so, and there's different thought processes, right? You can be young and in that growth mode and maybe not young, but farther along on the sort of financial development path and be less growth minded. So everybody's cashing up, looking for opportunity. And that opportunity might be in the real estate world. There's $250 million worth of debt coming due this year. So there might be some opportunity. I don't think it's going to be the 2009 bloodbath, but there's going to be some opportunity. They're also saving their money for tech deals. There's been a huge devaluation in tech companies. So a lot of the guys I hang around do that kind of stuff. People are still looking though. There's a lot of money on the sidelines. There's a lot of money out there. So that I think most folks are just making sure they've got cash. Gold's starting to come into the picture. I'm never a huge gold bug. I have some gold, but just depends on who you're talking to.
Right. So there's a lot of changes happening in the industry, and it's important to kind of set up your game plan, right? So that you can not just put your head in the sand, right, so to speak, but actually take advantage of potential market shifts, right, transfers of wealth, right, and be in a place to, essentially excel, right? Many economic downturns have produced some incredible wealth transfers. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And you won't know when the markets turn slow. Obviously, the real estate markets turn slow, but you got to be in the game, so to speak, to repeat that. And you got to be in there to know where the opportunities are. So it doesn't mean you have to buy or use your money, but you got to be in there. And yeah, when things turn around, there's generational money to be made.
Now, great to hear, Tom. Now, how do you analyze market trends and changes in demographics or economic factors to identify some potential opportunities? You've been at this over 25 years now. What's been your go-to?
I don't think I have one. Now I've hired somebody that does that and kind of looks at it. But I have so many feeds coming in from the services, Newmark and all the people that send information. So I'm constantly reading demographic information, and it's the national real estate picture is not the Texas real estate picture, which is not the Austin picture, which is not the local Austin. So everything's different. Real estate's very local. So my eyes go to anything that talks about new construction, demographics, jobs. For instance, we've started to lose a lot of tech jobs here in Austin, and everybody's losing tech jobs, but all those guys are here, right? Because we're the darling of the world right now, and it's foolish to think that Austin's immune. We just tend to sometimes not get hit as hard as others. But, so I watch those things and I want to know that there's job growth before we go and build a complex, because, we're 2-3 years before things settle down to where we want them to be. So we try to project out. We use, now I'm blanking on the name. We got a big service that has apartment rents and everything. CoStar. That, so we pay quite a bit for that sort of thing. So I use as much data as I can. I'm not a huge data freak, but I like it when somebody collates it for me so I can look at it.
Gotcha. And you make some interesting points, right? It's important to look at the fundamentals, right, of that local market, because real estate, some folks may think that real estate is just real estate, but different markets have different trends of different things to pay attention to. And the fundamentals are super important in order to make a proper decision when investing, right? So how do you, from an analytical standpoint, maybe evaluate the potential for rental income, occupancy rates in the markets you invest in?
Yeah. We jobs, job growth, population growth, absorption, past absorption. We do feasibility studies that show that, based on the population, current population and projected population growth, this area that we're looking at needs 1,200 apartment units, and there's 200 in the pipeline, and we want to build 240. That's one we'll look at. And then of course we look at the comps through CoStar, But CoStar still lags. They get their information from apartments.com and things. Information does lag. So we do the old school thing. We get our shoes dirty and just kind of check out the comparable places in the area. So we get real numbers and we put them in a spreadsheet that we developed.
Awesome.
The numbers, a friend of mine says, do the numbers. Numbers will tell you what to do. So we plug all that information into a spreadsheet, and if it works, we go to the next step.
You mentioned that spreadsheet, right? That's critical because at the end of the day, real estate is essentially, it's a business backed by real estate, right? So it's important to understand that real estate in that form of business, and especially a business where you're purchasing or developing hundreds of units, right? So can you discuss your approach to forecasting cash flow and projecting potential returns for any given investment?
Sure. We've got the spreadsheet does it for us. That's got sponsor waterfalls and investor return. And of course, investors get all their money first before sponsors do. So, we'll tend to project that out, and we try to keep pretty narrow exit cap rates from our purchase cost or our land, from what we build it at. We used to try to get a 200 basis point spread between on our yield to cost, but that's narrowed over time to 120 basis points. But we just want to make sure that the investors will get paid a reasonable return. And so ours is mostly development. So that starts about end of year 2, beginning of year 3. If it's too low, and we think that, if it's too low for the investors, we look on the back end to see if we can adjust our end to make it better for the investors. Stays too low, we scratch the project, because inside our pro formas, hopefully, non-optimistic rent growth. And we'd have some relatively young analysts and directors in our company, and sometimes we had to tell them that 5 and 6% was not a conservative rent growth. So we put them on. We gave them little assignments to look back at the past 20 years. And sometimes we'd find out that 1.9, 2.9 is the actual average rent growth, because rents do go up and down. So we want to sure to keep that relatively low and conservative. We've got so much data on expenses that we put in good expenses. We obviously bump the tax rate. We do all the things you're supposed to do on a pro forma. Now, what we try to do is run sensitivity tables. What will this look like if rents stay flat for 3 years? Or what if we're at 80% occupancy instead of 93% occupancy? What if both happen? Where's the tipping point where we go below debt service coverage ratio, that sort of thing. And where we're not cash flowing, or where we have to put more money in. So we look at those scenarios and try to be prepared for the ones that come up. And if it requires a little too much luck or too good of a market, or those margins are thin, we just don't do the project, because things will go wrong. Things always go. Something's going to happen. Right.
That's important, right? To do the proper analysis to determine whether this is a good business to jump in, right? Yourself as well as the investors, right? And we at my investment fund, Arch Capital Ventures, we take a conservative approach as well. So you want to make certain that, again, this is a good bet for everyone involved in, right? I want to shift the conversation a bit, Tom. You've got a book, a best-selling book that has an interesting title. When people think of doctors, they think of wealth, right? Oftentimes are rich, making a high income, but you've written a book that's called Why Doctors Don't Get Rich, right? A personal finance book. I'd love to hear what was the inspiration behind that book.
Yeah, so my buddy Robert Kiyosaki actually came up with that title, and I tested it for 2 years, never could find a better one. It's real. What that is, that's a metaphor for the fact that no matter how much you make per service or per hour, if you get hit by a bus or go down with COVID or something, the music stops. So, is wealth money? Money's a part of wealth, but there's a lot of other pillars that go along with it. So it's basically a book on passive income that basically shows the virtues of having money that comes in whether you sleep, work, vacation, or play with your kids. Once you get enough of that coming in, there's a point. If things go well, there's a point where it takes care of your lifestyle, covers the utility bills and the mortgage and the grocery bills and things like that. And when you're at that point where that money's coming in no matter what you do, I always say it gets boring. It comes in every month and there's nothing you can do about it, right?
Absolutely.
Once you're at that point, you are free. That's an overused word, but you can decide what you want to do. You can grow your life or your business bigger if you wish, or you can sit back and eat Cheetos and watch Netflix, or learn Chinese, learn to play the guitar, go meet new people. But basically, you have choice of what to do with your time.
Absolutely.
So,
Or hang out in Medellin and eat arepas con queso. Like
that's right. Arepas con chocolate.
That's right. That's right.
But that's the premise of the book. And it's, and wealth is a mindset plus action thing. And that's what the book's all about. And so it's really not just for doctors. And so but they're a great avatar for wealth that stops if you don't put in the work. And, we'd all like to have some wealth coming in, some revenue and income coming in without having to do the work each time. You do the work on the front end and you enjoy the benefits, hopefully forever.
Absolutely. It's interesting, right? I've spoken with several investors in the past, friends, frankly, and maybe they'll be investing X amount of dollar, but there's so much bells and whistles in the marketplace. Maybe it was crypto or shiny objects. Maybe it was crypto, it was this and that producing 1,000% returns or have you. So when they think of real estate, it's like, wow, I'm going to get, I don't know, $300, $400, $500 return. That's not a lot of money, but guess what? That's the payment for your wife car, right? The payment for yours. And what I look at it oftentimes is when you're investing in passive income, truly passive income projects, you can even make it as a goal to just knock out certain expenses that are maybe fixed in your life. And once you're doing that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, next thing you know, what do you find? You find all of your passive investments taking care of your life, right? Without having to think about how am I going to pay the mortgage this month? How am I going to pay the insurance, et cetera? Because these streams of income are coming in and taking care of your life. But it's a strategic way of visioning and a strategic way of doing, so that can actually eventually become that mailbox money, as it was once called, that produces that eventual freedom for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. If you look at the mountain and think you have to get to the top, it's daunting. It causes anxiety. You think, oh, I'll never get there. But there's one step, right? You take one step after another. And you make a good point. My first project made me about $150 a month extra. Not really life-changing for an orthopedic surgeon, right? But a couple of things. Though, number one, there's compounding. It's surprising what, time will make a bad deal look good and make a good deal look great. And you look smart, right? You look back and say, I knew that was going to do that 20 years ago. But you let those things grow and they grow like crazy. And I did the exercise that you mentioned. All I did was I kept putting everything back into the little entity that was buying real estate. And over time, you make an extra $1 a month you don't have to work for. That turns into 10. And one day you've got 2 things making $10 and it's 20. They grow over time. And one day I realized, I can pay my utility bill for the entire year with what I'm making passively. That's kind of fun. It's just like what you said. You just keep doing those little games with yourself, that little one at a time. And all of a sudden, one day you walk through your house and realize it's covering everything that you do. And it comes. If you look at Warren Buffett, have you ever looked at Warren Buffett's wealth creation? He does like this. It goes flat. Of course, it's bigger numbers than all the rest of us, but it goes like this. And then after about age 55 or 60, it goes up. It's the same thing happened to me, just with a lot tinier, a lot less zeros than Warren Buffett has. But it just percolated along for, 5, 8, 10 years. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like one day it went up. It wasn't quite that rapid, but it goes up fast.
Absolutely. Now, we're winding down on our show, Tom. You've been great so far. And I would like to ask you this. If you had a magic wand and you could go back in time and improve one thing, just one thing, what would it be?
Oof. Probably my focus.
Okay.
I am the poster child for attention deficit. That's either given me a lot of experiences in life or kept me from creating more wealth. But you know what? Enough is enough. So, I might have been a little more open-minded and looked at a few other things. I was laser focused on passive income, and that worked well. But I think once I created enough to cover my lifestyle, I might I might have thrown a few dice once in a while on some, Series A rounds, things like that, and worked on some capital gains issues. So I stayed passive income for a long time. It worked, but you can probably grow faster by doing a little hybrid of that.
Awesome. And Tom, is there anything that you're working on right now that you believe our audience should know about?
Yeah, I got two things on two different spectrums. I'll tell you quick. One is our company, we're in the multifamily world, so we'll do build to rent, we'll build multifamily, we do ground up stuff, ground up multifamily. And now we're with one of our partners. We've been looking for 2 years at another asset class. We're building extended stay hotel portfolios. So we're very excited about it. It's like a multifamily short stay hybrid, and they've got better rents per square foot than multifamily. They cash flow at 15 months on newly developed property, and they cash flow very well, higher than the multifamily property. So we're pretty excited about that. We've got 6 we're building first, and then we've got another portfolio we'll start later on in the spring. And then on the flip side, I'm raising money for an alternative investment. So it's just something else that I'm doing, but it's in the risk capital category, and that's paying over 30% on a monthly basis. So you got to keep your options open and have some fun. So,
there you go. And that circles back to our original the original points of our conversation. What led you to real estate and different types of investment? You've always wanted to have fun. So it's wonderful to hear that you stayed true to your original values since the beginning.
Well, and the real estate was kind enough to give me the ability to do that. So, if you got to pick one thing, real estate will get you there. It's not the only thing out there, but it'll get you there.
Well, you've been very transparent with us. You've been a great guest, and I'm sure our audience has been finding a ton of value from our conversation. And I know, Tom, that folks are going to want to reach out to you. So what are some of the best ways that our folks can connect with you?
Website is rich.life. And if they go to rich.life/toolkit, there's some free stuff that's kind of helped me over the past 30 years. And you can always get me at tom@rich.life.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tom, for coming on the show today. You've been awesome. Loved hearing your stories from, starting as a young professional to building a career spanning over 25 years. Some of the things that you've learned are just fantastic for our folks to learn from. So again, thank you for coming on the show. We're looking forward to having you on the podcast anytime that you'd like to come back.
Oh, you bet. I sure appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
For sure. Have a great one.
Thanks.
We trust that you enjoyed today's show. Visit archcapital.ventures to learn more about how you can leverage real estate investing to improve your life through passive income, financial freedom, and generational wealth.